Tabletopped will start after the following messages.
Hey everyone, this is Nick, the host of the Tabletop podcast, and I have a little new website to tell you all about. It's shadowmain.com, shadowmain.com, and it's a blog that is all about TTRPGs, covering playing, game mastering, creation, and streaming, and they have featured weekly articles, interviews, reviews, and news. It's a huge amount of stuff that they do over there, and it's all TTRPG. It's really awesome. You should check it out. Sign up for their email list to get a free monthly RPG zine featuring new NPCs, magic items, monsters, and sneak peeks into their upcoming RPG game, Six Gun Doomsday, an adventure combining the Weird West, gothic horror, and post-apocalypse.
Welcome back to Tabletop, everyone. Nobody is going to understand these intros, and they have no context.
You have to stop deleting things, Nick.
Listen.
We're on a roll. This shit is gold. Never throw anything out that we say.
Yeah,
we are brilliant.
we are geniuses.
We need the baby and the bathwater.
Yeah, and if you want to see some
That's
of the bloopers...
how you make soup. Wait. No. Oh, man.
What a crazy joke. I'll actually...
Get a stew going.
Did I make a baby eating joke?
Yeah.
And
a baby cooking joke.
Baby cooking joke. Oh, butter my biscuit.
Yeah, if you want to
Shucks.
see content a lot like this, bloopers, they are on our Patreon.
Bloopies.
Patreon.com/tabletop. Also, please like and subscribe to the show.
Yeah, but who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah,
That's
you
a
didn't
great
actually
question.
get anything out in the beginning.
Who are any of us?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tabletop. This is Franco, your host. I'm here with my co-hosts, the best in the biz,
Blorpin Bloppa.
Nico and Rio.
Hi, everybody. This is Rio, your host of Tabletop.
And
welcome to this episode where I'm joined by my co-host, Franco, and Nico.
Hey, y'all, it's Nico. I'm just one of these people coming in, sitting down, talking to your mic, and we got to talk about things, but I'll pass it back over to Nick, too.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Nico.
Yeah, the acting is... This is what you learn in acting school? Is really good.
This is actually year 2 of acting school.
Yeah. How many, did you have to do, like, dialect classes and stuff?
Yeah, I wasn't very good at them, though.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I didn't know.
Wow.
Sorry, that was like a dig, but I didn't really mean it like that.
When I went to actor school, I registered late, and I got put into the non-major acting classes, and I took really weird ones.
Oh.
With, like,
Like method?
Was it fun?
No, I didn't enjoy
No,
it.
in fact, method is kind of reserved, like, all of the real, like, techniques that you need to buy into are usually reserved for, like, the core level classes. So I'm, like, really interested in what they teach all of the folks who aren't interested in acting but are doing it for, like, a credit or whatever.
It was like the history class and then like just like random theater stuff. So it was like none of the technique classes.
Yeah,
I didn't get to any of that.
I've always thought that was so stupid that, like, if somebody's interested in, like, hey, I want to take some performance training, I think it's going to, like, help me out. They're like, oh, great, we're so glad to have you. We're going to teach you the history of theater. And it's like, who fucking cares? Like, teach them how to give a speech, you know?
I came to shine, not to read.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought I'd have a rhyme if I trusted my heart.
Well, everyone should listen to our hip-hop history episode on the Patreon.
That's actually, while we were talking about hip-hop, I was like, should we make like a hip-hop podcast where you try to teach me hip-hop? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Well, way to cut out the third person sitting at this table.
I think that
Rio
you have more.
also,
more hip hop knowledge than I do as well. So you could also be a teacher.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think even Shade also really likes hip hop.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could all just teach you a thing or two.
Literally, when I was a kid, my mom would be
just
like,
stuff from the aughts, really.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, let me just tell you everything about like the '90s and the aughts and stuff, and then everything else.
when
is
you
like
weren't alive, and I'll be like, I was alive. I was just young.
Yeah.
Different.
different. Yeah,
I was different.
And then in the tens, that's when That's when everything started to change.
Yeah. Also, for the
It
audience,
wasn't for me anyway.
you might notice that Shade isn't here today, and that's why we have not introduced the topic of this episode, though we're 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
So why don't we?
Listen, it's not me.
It's not you.
It's them.
It's us.
When I was younger, I was a lot happier. Were you a lot happier when you were younger?
Definitely not.
There's a point in Lady Bird, like a line that I really like that Beanie Feldstein says, and she says, "Some people weren't built happy," and I feel like that was me when I was a teenager through my 20s.
I just realized the point of my life I was remembering was the time when my father was away at sea.
What about when he was in prison?
Well, he was only in prison for like 6 months, so that was. And then my
that's not too
mom
bad.
made us go visit him a lot. And there was a lot
It's
of
worse.
And then we lived in a house that was next to the church where he had gotten fired from. So there was
Don't
always
tell
like,
them why.
Don't.
So there was,
Don't.
Don't
So
tell
there was
them
always
why.
stairs.
Okay, cool.
So
Okay,
there was-
great. Whew. How long was he at sea?
Oh, like all the time.
Oh, okay.
All the time.
Because you know he
so,
was
like,
in the Navy.
Anytime he was gone,
He
it
was
would be
like-
like, this is sick.
He was deployed a lot.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was just like, yeah, we were just, me and my mom and my other sibling, we were just like chilling, having a great time. And then he would come home and be like, "Rah!" And then he would leave again, and we'd be like, God, that was traumatic.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate your dad.
Yeah. Everyone should hate Rio's dad. However,
Welcome to Tabletop.
Welcome to
Welcome to
Tabletop.
Tabletop.
Welcome to Tabletop. Everyone should hate Rio's dad.
Yeah.
Where we all say, we all hate Rio's dad.
But you have some questions for us.
you have
Rio.
some actual
I had
interesting
questions
things.
for you.
Yeah, so Rio off mic for the listener was kind of talking about all of these things that are bumping around his big beautiful brain, and you were like, "Oh, these are some specific questions that we were like you were rock tumbling, and you wanted to just kind of workshop on the mic."
Oh,
and
yeah,
then we were
yeah.
like, "Why don't we all do that?" So we're just gonna start into some questions.
Let's
we're gonna
just
talk
spit
about
some
it
facts.
in
All
a
right.
free form way. This
Like
will probably
jazz.
this will probably come out around Thanksgiving, and so we're just able to
That's why we're talking about family.
and that's what we're talking about. Family, and questions.
All right. And I think as a
answers.
fun little treat for our listeners, we're going to open up the phone lines. But this is going to play much after the recording. So when you hear this, just give us a text at the number that Nick will put in later.
Hey everyone, it's future Nick editing this episode, and Tabletop's fake call-in number is 555-555-5555. All right, don't call that because it won't go anywhere. Okay, bye.
Make sure to enter code 666 for to vote for your favorite co-host, which is me. Mine's 666, Franco. It's if you
I'll
wanna
be
dial.
668.
I'm 1.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is
What an asshole.
Yeah.
tough. It's tough for you
Yeah.
guys, really.
Because it's going to be a 3-digit number, so no one's going to get any
It's
votes from there.
001, you know.
Oh, 001.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a 00.
Yeah, 2 zeros make a 1.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
2 zeros make a 1.
Oh,
okay.
we got a caller right now on line 1.
Oh, whoa. Let's hit it.
Yeah.
Why do you think in fiction, magical worlds are always glamorous and happy, but industrial worlds are always grim and dark?
I have some counterpoint examples for you.
No,
probably.
I think that this is. I think that you're right in that the fallback is always
like the default
industrialism is the destruction of natural beauty, and it then falls into the natural world as being twisted and mangled into productivity. I actually think that industrialized settings are more or less people just like upset with capitalism.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause you got Blade Runner. You've got
Any cyberpunk stuff.
Any cyberpunk stuff.
what was
yeah.
that one? Total Recall.
Oh yeah.
AI.
What's the one with Bruce Willis and the
Bruce Almighty.
Yep. Yeah, it was Bruce
Fifth
Almighty.
Element. I believe is what you're
Element,
after.
Yup.
I was like Rio, I have some counterexamples for you, but I realized that they actually are intentional subversions of that trope.
Yeah.
So like The Magicians, for example, that series, where it's like really dark and edgy or whatever, and it's like all about magic and stuff, but it's like kind of like, well, yeah, it's a subversion of our expectations because we think of magical worlds as being like cool and fun or whatever.
Kiki's delivery service.
Kiki's delivery, yeah, exactly. We think it's Kiki's delivery service.
Or if you look at any of the Oz stuff.
Like the prison show?
like the prison.
No, like the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, the Wizard of Oz.
Jesus.
Yeah.
The wizard thereof.
But what about Wicked? Wicked has like a pretty dark portrayal.
It's a subversion.
It is a subversion.
Yeah, it's an
But
intentional
if you look
subversion.
at the before the Wicked Witch goes off, the college, the school, the Emerald City, all of it like splendor, pretty, perfect.
Right, exactly. The expectation is that a magical fantasy world should be nice.
Right. Yeah.
because you can do
Or
anything with
Rivendell,
magic,
right?
yeah.
Before, if you stay out of Mordor and all of that.
And that's actually a great example because all of the areas that are under control by like the good guys, I use finger quotes, but like all of those are kind of natural beauty, like Rivendell's like in the
Lothlorien.
sun. Yeah. And like even Minas Tirith where it's like this beautiful white stone and all that stuff. However, all of the Uruk-hai or the orcs or whatever, like everything that they do is always like they're tempering
Nasty.
steel, they're born in mud,
it's like intentionally
it's industrial.
And I think that's even like Tolkien's point, right? With all like it was basically I just based it on like the factories that were being built around like where I was living and stuff and growing up, and they were belching smoke.
Yep.
Nobody wants to hear about Lord of the Rings.
But
Everyone's pissed at us for talking about Lord of the Rings. They're like, Lord of the Rings is played out. It's boring.
But then you have like
on,
Neverland, Wonderland, most of the lands.
Yeah.
Narnia. Narnia had a bunch of like nice, wonderful lands.
I mean, there's always conflict in these worlds, right? But it's sort of like the idea is like...
But the backdrop is always like, look how like pretty and like wonderful everything.
We should protect the magic, and the villains are corrupting magic or doing something bad with it. Whereas like in the Magicians, like magic is like we should have never done this. I feel like magic in the Magicians is like how we discovered the atom bomb. It's like whoops, can't put that back in the fucking box.
Yeah, there are two
or AI.
Yeah, or AI. There are two different settings that I'm both of them D&D actually that I would love to throw out there and see what you guys think if they fall into this. Which is
we'll see.
One is Dark Sun, which is it's a magical world.
The edgelord one?
Yeah, the edgelord one.
Yeah.
Where like all of the magic requires life energy, and so the like 5 major wizards blighted the entire world into like a desert because they've sucked up all of the life energy to control this huge magical power.
Right, the Dune of the Forgotten
Exactly.
Realms.
Yes, and then there's also fucking where the Warforged come from. Help me
Eberron.
out. Eberron. I don't think Eberron feels nasty, does it? I've never played in Eberron, actually.
Eberron is industrial. They have the Dragonmark houses, but
That's where Artificer comes from too, right?
Artificer comes from there, but I've never. Yeah, I'm familiar with the setting because it was like someone won a prize to
we
have
talked
their
about
setting.
Eberron.
Yeah,
There was a whole
right.
episode about that we did on it, and I didn't understand what the fuck any of you guys were talking about. 'Cause I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I've seen this. I don't think that's a dystopia, but that's also more in the realm of high magic as well. So it kind of like
This magic still exists.
magic still exists, but also the construct Warforged people exist. So I don't think it falls into the whole. This is a technologically advanced race. There's these group of people that know how to make technology, but it
don't they
still
have, like,
relies
trains and
on
stuff?
magic. Yeah, because you have the artificers that
Yeah,
can make
gotcha.
these things, but the world itself is still sort of that medieval magical.
Gotcha.
It's like
World.
a steampunk setting, kind
Yeah.
of, but not really.
Are steampunk settings usually because they also kind of combine
they
these
usually-
two settings, but it feels like
They kind of
steampunk
hit in
is
the middle
yeah, because it's like
Yeah.
still has the whimsy, but it is
Yeah.
also dark and
because they kind of hit like steampunk is the transitional period where you're losing the magical wonder and you're heading into the techno dystopia.
yeah.
I
you think it's like a halfway point? Like
There's actually
Yeah.
there's
That's
actually a
interesting.
really
the
interesting
watershed date.
There's a really interesting young adult series from when I was a teenager. The first one's called Leviathan, and it's basically World War I.
God, I wish I could have thought about a really recent YA series that that would have been the joke.
Yep.
It would have been like
Great.
fucking damn it,
Let's wallow in your
Out of
failure
here.
for a second.
Damn it.
Ooh.
The Mortal Bones.
Mortal Bones,
Mortal
from
Bones.
your childhood.
Yeah.
yeah.
But the thing
Baby ass.
well, we got there eventually.
Yeah.
But the whole thing.
Throw your ass in a stew, you baby.
Well, that's a callback. I like it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so the young adult series is World War I, but only
That's
in that.
fun.
in that everything if the trenches had been drawn where they had been drawn in World War One.
Oh, they dug those actually.
Yeah. So, okay, I will get through this thought, and I'm going to make sure it happens no matter how many interruptions. So the series is called, or the first one is called Leviathan, and basically in World War I there's a trench structure near France, and they have made it so that everything to the west of that are Darwinists who subscribe to Darwin's theory of evolution and are very, have essentially
gene editors.
Yeah, they've put all of their technology points into biology.
How many tech points should they get per level?
I don't know, man. It's a lot because they literally, like I was saying, have a whale. All of their airships are whales that they've genetically engineered to fill with helium and their gas organs that they've put in essentially, and so they're able to float. And they've created these giant living structures that they fight their wars in. Whereas everyone to the east of the trench lines are all industrialists, and so they just have these mega structures of technology. So they have cities that are walking around, and they're fighting these giant biological cities. And the whole story is about two soldiers one on either side, and they fall in love and also try to stop the war.
Oh, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, it's young adult. Yeah, but I've always loved the idea that
was one of them born with they were nobody's ever had this gene editing power before.
No, I don't think so. I think that one of them's just a really good industrialist that's able to build really well, and then one of them is very good at
he was dead
communing with the animals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so all the things.
The plot of Pandora.
You've never seen it?
No, that's a little bit more
Avatar?
Yeah, it's
Avatar,
more isn't that the Pocahontas story? If you take it beat for beat, it's basically Pocahontas.
It's just Pocahontas, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's much more like colonizer stuff, but instead of World War I.
Unobtainium is, oh God, I still get angry.
Yeah, Unobtainium is a great MacGuffin. I love that. I thought it was fuck it. Make it Unobtainium.
You can't get it, Iam.
Yeah. But anyway, so
Hands off, Iam.
Why would they put helium in the whales? Were they still alive?
Yeah. They were sky whales.
Just try hydrogen.
Yeah.
Could they breathe?
Yeah. It was basically they
made flying whales.
Yeah, they're big flying whales. So they have these big gas sacs that keep them afloat, right? Because they've been gene edited, but also they have normal things that allow them to survive, and they've basically used gene editing to make a creature that resembles a whale, because a whale was used at the beginning, and then they've made a new creature.
How high could it go?
It was full airplane. There was many a sequence where there are these whales coming in, and then they send out these manta rays to dogfight with all of the jet engines and stuff, and It's pretty cool. Yeah, they're like aircraft carriers except in the sky.
That sounds badass.
It was very cool. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really cool series, and I've always wondered is there a setting in a TTRPG that has that sort of separation of where did these civilizations put their technological focus? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I always feel we've cracked communication when it comes to our world. We figured out the transfer of information really well.
Yeah, what else is there?
But what if we cracked energy? That's what everyone in the 50s thought we were going to do. Everything was nuclear powered. We had flying cars, all that kind of stuff, because we had limitless energy. So I've always wondered.
It's actually pronounced nuclear.
Nuclear.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. But I've always wondered about all the different technology trees we could have gone down. You know what I mean? It'd be cool. Cool to dive into.
Think about. Yeah.
Yeah. What other technological trees are there? Energy, communications, agriculture.
Yeah.
Transportation.
Biology, health.
Biology.
Gene editing. All that kind of stuff.
Medicine.
Yeah. I feel a lot of them are kind of multiples. Space travel is probably a combination of many of these,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just I feel we just all went in on communication to the detriment of everything else.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of our power.
It's all miscommunication.
Am I right?
Am I right or am I right?
Welcome to my TED Talk.
What was the opening question part? Is there anything that we need to answer?
The question was, why is magic always happy and go lucky, and technology is always dystopian and gritty?
Yeah, I think it's just natural world, childhood wonders, magical and all that kind of stuff.
I think Nick immediately answered it, so I guess we're done here. What's the next call?
Let's get to the next call.
Phone trees lighting up.
Well, howdy there, Tabletop boys. I was calling in so that I could ask you about alternative timeline games.
making a setting. I was wondering, where would you diverge the timeline to make some sort of TTRPG setting? Thanks so much. Can't wait to hear.
I think I would probably, because like the way that I remember, I feel like you phrased this was, where would you start diverging?
Yeah, where's your divergence point?
And then, but like you didn't ask when does the story start?
Right.
So I think whatever my divergence points is going to be.
Yeah, both of those are interesting.
I think they're going to be the same thing. I think it's going to be like
you would set it at the divergent point.
I think I would set it like 10 years or 20 years, 50 years or whatever. Not like 100 or 200 years. I think that would be boring. Mm-hmm. It would be like, unless that was your idea. I'm sorry. Like I think it's just like 200 years. That's way too fucking long. Like so many things could be different. And it's like, let's just go with like. It's like I like to look at like technological inflection points, right? Like soap or fucking steam engines and stuff. Like there's so many things that could have been invented earlier. Like I think there's a few interesting things that you can look up online where it's like they'll show you at what point could humanity have like physically been able to invent this thing. Mm-hmm. I think those are interesting points. I don't know when they are.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing of taking like inventions as like a technological advancement. I think that's great. I think
a lot of times we think about war.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say another way you could do this is like I was going to say act of God, but also like environmental disasters or whatever. Like you could take, so at one point the Mongols were invading Japan and they were going to do it too.
Oh, yeah, that's
and then
right.
a typhoon came and destroyed all of their ships. And so they were like, just leave Japan alone.
Yeah,
and
Buddha.
Like, what if that didn't happen? And like Japan and then Korea and then that whole area was taken over by the Mongols. We'd have very different cultural, societal things over there.
Do we consider the Mongols colonizers? Or conquerors?
I don't know. They were nomadic. They were definitely conquerors, but
I feel like modern day like colonialism, European colonialism. Everybody has like these boxes that they'll be like, oh, that's this, that's that, and it's like everything is kind of unique from each other, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the Mongols definitely did. Like they allowed more. They allowed like complete religious freedom because
they assimilated as they.
Yeah.
Expanded,
they assimilated.
Right?
They became more.
The ones they left alive, because they would just go through and kill a ton of people.
Yeah, they would kill like entire cities by hand, which is like pretty
insane.
Wild. A logistical nightmare.
Think about the time that they spent.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
They spent a lot of time just destroying entire populations.
Yeah. Terror tactics.
Well, that's a whole other. Okay, but back to your.
No, I was just gonna say, this is. That's where I would.
Are they colonialists? Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, like anybody that's like conquering stuff, right? Like the Greeks when they went out to they like set up colonies. That's where the word colony comes from, and like the Romans, obviously. Yeah, I think that's all colonialism. But like I guess like colonialism is
like has a specific meaning kind of thing.
I think it's usually reserved for European colonialism.
Well, I guess there's also like Japanese colonialism where they
totally
went to South Korea and China and just like fucked shit up for a while and were like, you guys belong to us.
Yeah.
So I think that like all nations sort of have similar things about this, but like you said, I think colonialism tends to mean a very specific version of it.
I mean, I feel like I don't know if this is
the definition
true.
we have is British Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there were other empires, but yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah,
obviously that was the biggest one.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that finding something that really interests you, whether it's technology, whether it's like just like random events that changed history. Rio, do you have like a specific one that you think about? When
I
you
have
see
the
this?
one that I'm working on right now.
Yeah,
and that is the Salem witch trials. And I guess I would be.
What if they were really witches?
Got him.
Yeah, so in this working, magic is real. It is passed down in hereditary lines. And so the women that were accused were real magical beings.
What about the men that were accused?
Real magical beings. Okay. But it was more predominantly passed along mother to daughter than it would be mother to son or father to son.
That'd be really interesting, too, because those points of like family lines ending early, it like has exponential effects as you go on. So I think that's like a really interesting thing, because like that could mean that all of America as a country has less magical ability than the rest of the world or whatever. And does that mean that do they win any of the world wars or any conflicts that they have because they don't have the magical heft to get behind certain things?
Well, that's what I will get into as I explore the concept, because as it will be the church, which is not going to be any of like the religious churches that currently exist. I will also be changing some of that. So I'd have to go further back, but I'm not going to make any.
I mean, you don't even
points.
have to go that much further back because people came for religious freedom. So you just take what that ended up looking like. You know what I mean?
Just have all the Gnostics survived the original schism,
but
basically
that's
who populated America.
The major points in the timeline I'm creating are the Salem witch trials happened because magic was real. So we took we got rid of a lot of the magical bloodlines. Went to technology. The 1950s had our big nuclear power structures. In the 1980s, I'm going to have America go into a full authoritarian government.
Reagan. Yeah, exactly.
With Reagan, yep. We're going to annex Canada and Mexico due to Daijinin, a company, having genetically engineered a dragon, the North American dragon, the NAD, using nuclear power.
Interesting. So it's like a mechanical dragon?
It's bioengineered, as you were talking about with the whales.
Yeah.
Bioengineered using like science and machine. But the radiation is not going to have a sort of the decaying effect that our modern radiation has because it will have been made off of sort of archived magical studies. And so it will cause the world to go through a bit of a sort of mutagenesis. And so a lot of the population does end up dying off. And a lot of the planet just becomes sort of wild growth. And we get out-predated by a lot of the new...
magical creatures.
New creatures. The new... and then like, because... and other countries found out what, America was doing. They created their own... answers to the dragon. So there's a phoenix, there's a quetzalcoatl, so there's a sort of a nuclear war of mythological beast. And so at the beginning of whatever story I'm telling, that is done and over with. And so everyone's trying to
That's
survive.
A lot of inflection points, and I think you just needed one.
Yeah. I always start with overcomplicating things.
And then simplify as you
And
go.
all I really want is to just have my little city where everyone's trying to struggle to survive. But I'm really struggling with how broken is the world that these people are living in.
I think that you have to make it pretty broken for there to be isolated like city states and stuff like that. But but I think you could do a lot of cool stuff like biological barriers or like geographic barriers between things caused by the NAD and stuff like that could be really interesting. Or like, is there like a certain section of the U.S. like in Fallout where it's like the new California Republic or whatever that's actually kind of modernizing again, like coming back because they still have the power centers or whatever from the old ways,
right?
And stuff like that. So you could have kind of a mix of all these things, which I think is really cool.
There's a lot to consider, but that's what I was really thinking about timelines, like what would change. And the first thing I had started doing was I just went back, and the first thing I changed was this: I made this company established in 1985. Year of the Ox, if you're born in 85, shout out. And just had that company come around and then did a little timeline of it coming. And then in I think I had it in like 1997, unleashing the NAD. At the same time they announced they were annexing. So I think I had them annex Canada and Mexico in 2001. So instead of 9/11, you had this annexion dragon destroy everything. Right. So it was another big... monumental.
The two towers are Canada and Mexico.
I mean, basically. But the story, and this is where I might get into some hot water, is
wait for this.
America is the bad guy.
I don't think that's going to get you in any hot water these days.
I mean, it will in Twitter and Truth Social.
Yeah.
Truth Social. Those guys, they hate it.
Our presence there has been weird.
Yeah.
Can I pitch my inflection point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are going to laugh. But I have been thinking about this while you were talking about this. I'm going to go with January 6th.
And just like change it so that they win.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
the one.
Yeah, that could be an inflection point.
I think it could.
I don't think anybody's gonna want to play that game.
No.
I don't know why.
I think you could do something similar with like the Whiskey Rebellion.
Yeah,
and just have something like that.
I don't know anything about it.
It's just basically after the Revolutionary War, these people are like, you said that this was all about taxation without representation. We are not we like have voted to not have this whiskey tax, but you're doing this so that you can pay the government's debts. Like, fuck you guys. We're becoming independent so that we don't have to pay this ridiculous tax. And then the Revolutionary Army, which was still kind of together at that point, went on down there and killed everybody and said, like, taxes are good, friends. So
it's almost as if these business leaders that put together a revolution were actually involved in business.
I think it was like 20 years after, very soon after. George Washington was one of the people that like went down there.
So it was right after it must have been right after the Constitution.
Yeah, totally.
Not the Articles of Confederation.
I also heard somewhere, this is a little bit of a left turn, but I've also heard somewhere that one of the reasons why the British Empire like left and took the L was because they basically were like, if we leave, all of the private people, like business people that own stuff in America will still own it, right? And they were like, yeah, but they're our citizens. And then they're like, okay. And then they just left because they could still control business stuff there.
Right.
And so they would just continue to do that.
They also were fighting a war in France. And it was like, we can't afford to go across the ocean and fight this for whatever, and we can still own our property, and it's fine.
It was really, America really showed its true colors when they were like, the French Revolution,
nah, man.
Nah, we'll keep hanging out with the UK, actually. We like Great Britain instead this time. Like, we were hanging out with the French, but now that they don't have a king anymore, we're good here.
Yeah.
It was always about power. It was never about democracy. It wasn't. The United States was not established as a representative democracy at all. It was,
And on that note, let's do some democracy and hit up our next caller. Next caller.
Right after this break.
Hey everyone, it's me, Nick, from the Tabletop Podcast. When I'm not hosting, I'm thinking about ways to create a better podcast for you guys, and I think I landed on something pretty fun. In fact, if you go to our Patreon at patreon.com/tabletop and join for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to a new episode a month that we're going to start putting out. In fact, we're going to be calling this one Wild Magic, I think, in that we're going to talk about anything and everything that interests us, not just TTRPGs, though there will be a lot of that. It is truly unhinged, and if you are a fan of the podcast and all of the hosts, you're definitely going to want to be on it. We're thinking of dropping these at the end of each month, so join our Patreon today. That is patreon.com/tabletop. Oh, and there's going to be so much more coming out in the new year there, so don't miss it. Sign up today.
Welcome back to Tabletop. We're talking to callers, kind of, taking questions, talking about it. I hope you're all having a lovely holiday. And why don't we continue on?
Holiday.
Who's our next caller?
Hey, Tabletop guys. Just wanted to ask a question. What does your GM owe you if you are in a game?
Yeah, I mean, it's right. Like, it's a new type of thing that I'm trying out, right? Which is like, and like with the open table, I'm going to get even more open world than this world. And so I think part of it is like, hopefully I can give them satisfying conclusions to some of the things that they've been following. Hopefully like what they find and stuff will be interesting and satisfying to them. I think that's all I can really hope for. And, I think like the fear of this type of campaign a lot of times, and I think why a lot of people don't do this type of campaign and why like the 5e school of like, let's tell an epic story and be epic, like, millennial shit or whatever. You know how millennials say epic all the time. Like, let's have a big epic story, and like I want to
epic with an X.
Yeah, epics, and they, I think it can be difficult to wrap up in a satisfying way, but I think it's not impossible. I think like what was your question?
Well, the question is really about like what do you owe?
What do you owe them?
Yeah, you know
I think working on like creating interesting things for them to be interested in.
Yeah,
I think that's all you really.
Because we've talked before about the players owing the GM the grace of investing. You know what I mean? Investing in the world and try to as a normal person,
like make that. I think for the GM, you have to make that investment worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the players are responsible for investing in the game, then the GM is responsible for dividends in their investment.
That's a good way to put it, I guess.
Yeah, we are like finance bro pilled now. So if you guys want to, buy tabletop bucks.
It's a new crypto.
We'll be making
super solid.
Some NFTs of all of our faces.
Yeah, we're only releasing 10 of each of us. So get those NFTs.
Yeah, they're going to be minted. It's going to blow out
tabletops, trading cards, NFTs.
But yeah, but like for me,
get them early on our Patreon.
But like for me, the thing too, and like Rio, you kind of went through this a little bit too, where it's like sometimes you get to a part in a campaign where you're like, this isn't what I want it to be. Like I'm thinking about Westwood for me, but you probably went through this with Espers and other stuff like that, where you're just like, this isn't exactly what I kind of wanted to have go on.
You owe them nothing, and you should just walk away.
Yeah. Wow. Well, but honestly, because I was kind of thinking
that's what I did.
But I think that might be, you might be right in a way of like, I think that the GM it owes the players, hey, I'm not into this anymore. You know what I mean? Because like
you owe the invested players that much.
Yeah.
And if the players aren't invested, then it's kind of like, well, okay, we can mutually feel like this is okay.
Yeah.
I think I struggle with this in my personal life and in my gaming life and in the podcast. Probably not. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm saying. Is like feeling like it's okay to say no or whatever and like disappoint people or feel disappointed and stuff. I think that can be really tricky for people.
Well, remember, disappointment lasts a little while. Burdening yourself to carry a campaign will last indefinitely. So just rip that Band-Aid off if you're not enjoying it and you don't think you can give what the players are coming to look for. Yeah. If you can't do a Hundo P, and if you can't do 80p, then
you better rhyme. This is so easy. Then
80p.
If you can't do 80p, then
let it be.
Nice.
Okay,
you landed.
As if I put a lot of pressure on my poor little me. But if you are going to keep rolling through and your players are there and you're there, then you owe them, solid
every part of you,
solid choices. You give them you have to put hooks in the water. You owe them you owe them good bait. You owe them taut lines, moist bait.
Ooh, moist.
Meaty bait.
One thing I want to ask then is, what if you have an invested group of people who are like, oh my fucking God, I love this campaign. This is the best. Maybe a GM's dream. Like, oh my God, this is so fucking good. I can do this forever. And it's like a comic book. Is this fat
free? I can't believe it.
And it's like a comic book kind of thing where it's like, then you kind of have to do it forever because they're still so invested.
I only read manga.
That suffers from the same problem, baby.
Okay.
One Piece. But like, and like maybe you're like, I only really want to tell this till this point, but everyone is like clamoring for more.
Leave them wanting more.
Yeah, your responsibility is to make a good campaign, not a long campaign.
That's true. You guys know how I feel about endings. I feel like they're super necessary, but I just feel like TTRPGs are so close in style to comic books, where it's like you get a piece of the story every 2 weeks or whatever, and everyone sits down to read it together, and then you move on. But it just keeps the expectation is that kind of keeps going on. What
comic books do you read that come out every 2 weeks?
Well, I'm just saying TTRPGs, you sit down every 2 weeks, or at least we do. So,
you could just you just move on. You tell them like, well, this part's done. Do you guys want to run another campaign in the same place set 10 years later? Like if you guys really like this setting, if you really, it's like what parts are they invested in? If they're invested in like, oh, I love my little OC characters and shit like that or whatever, then it's like, yeah, they're going to want to go on indefinitely with those characters. So you're just going to have to, I don't know, start a new campaign.
You can do it 10 years later. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, we're gonna de-level a little bit so that the story can keep going. 10 years of not adventuring.
Or you remove levels.
That's what I said, de-level.
No, you don't have levels in your game.
Oh, you don't? How do you play that? Okay, we can play a different game.
You're going to find out.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, like you can just, keep the story going 10 years later. I don't understand why comic books don't do this. I would love if, like, Marvel Comics had, like, decades. Because I feel... Because you were talking about this maybe off mic, how you said some shows feel like they're part of a season. I feel like Spider-Man is a 90s superhero.
Yeah.
And the X-Men
and him
are
walking
60s.
around with a smartphone.
It's weird. The 80s.
Weird.
The X-Men are the 80s.
I'd say more the 60s, actually, because that's the civil rights
That's
movement,
when they
right?
started, yeah. Okay. But it's like...
But I guess maybe with, like, Reagan, like, they make a reappearance as important.
But yeah, I don't know why like they keep having to revamp them. Like, just have them set in their decades, and you could keep telling the same stories over and over again anyway.
But would you read an X-Men book with none of the X-Men you know? Like, if
they already have none of the X-Men I know in the books that they're writing now.
No X-Men you know?
Yeah, they changed the X-Men team up like all the time, man.
I thought they're like the guy Cyclops was still
I don't care about comic books. I'm so sorry, guys, but I think it's a different situation, right? Because like the players are still playing characters, so they're playing the game. So if I don't know, like if these characters are done, then just fucking put them away, and then just tell your players to get over it. And we're gonna start a new session with it, or we're gonna start a new campaign with like a whole new world, or the same world, or their kids or something. Like they have
that's the point that we were just making.
Yeah, but like you guys were talking about comic books, and then I sort of tuned out.
God. Yeah, that happened.
Comic books.
Why don't we go to the next caller?
Hey guys, I just wanted to ask you, what's the point of leveling?
Hell yeah, let's fucking get into it.
What are levels? Why do we need levels?
To get a number value of how our lives are going.
No, I think that is a good question. I think that like levels provide a structured way for your characters to grow and change and have that manifest in the mechanics of the game, right?
It's all predictable, though.
It is predictable unless you multi-class or unless you take a
well, no, but then that's predictable then, too.
Because if there's a set amount of options. No, I get you, but like I think that...
well, in a game that I've been playing recently, and it's called Cyberpunk 2077, you do level up. But one of the best ways to like change your character is with the cyber mods, and you can level those up with components, so you can just make better versions of them, and you can take them out and put them back in, so that you can change up your play style. I knew you didn't
like leveling,
and that way you can just be like, I have these ankles that can make me double jump, and I've progressed them to the point where they have all these special bonuses. But, I want to do a stealth mission, so let me put on my other ankles that I've modified that let me be very sneaky and quiet when I'm moving around, because I'm going to go through a warehouse.
But when... do you have to like go back to your base to
You can find any doctor.
I want to pitch a question to you,
That's fucking cool, though.
Yeah.
Because then you're sort of limited as well. Like, oh, shit, I have to find a doctor to switch out my ankles.
That's right, yeah.
I want to pitch this to you as a thought, though, is that, like Rio was saying, this sort of upgrading leveling system isn't being able to go from a beginner adventurer that has 3 copper to their name to being a mediocre adventurer that has enough silver to buy a real metal sword. Isn't that leveling up?
Yeah. That's great. It's what an Into the Odd is referred to as diegetic advancement.
Oh, right. God damn it. I was writing something called Into the Odd the other day, and I thought I made it up. But I'm realizing that I probably heard about it from you.
About Into the Odd several times.
No, my memory doesn't work.
It's only
my memory doesn't work.
You heard him. Memory doesn't work.
Yeah.
However, I was going to say about that, though, is like, how is that really any different than, a fighter being able to learn how to do a different technique with their sword?
How does the battle master learn how to do the tripping attack?
Right. This is a great. So I think though
I punch enough orcs until I can do a trip attack.
But
you know
what if like that whole thing is building up enough battle experience, and then one day like he sees the orc's glaive coming in a weird way, and then he's like, oh, the weak point here is the ankle.
Here's an alternate way of getting that feature, because when you like level up, you become battle master. You can like it's all mechanical kind of like you're like, okay, now that you're a battle master, you get a D8. You know, you get a certain amount of D8s or whatever, and you can expend one of those D8s to do this trip attack or any set number of this menu of maneuvers that you can do, so you can do those. What if instead you just were like, you were in a fight and you were like, I'm going to try to trip this guy. Can I do that? And you make a check, and you know you succeed. You succeed a few times doing that, like in several combats, and at a certain point, the referee is like, I think you've done enough of these where you don't have to make that check anymore, and you can just do it.
Isn't that sort of like milestone leveling? Where it's like, it's just you've done this a bunch of times, and so you can go to the next level or whatever.
It's sort of like...
No?
Okay. Because it's related to the fiction. Because you're doing that, if you're practicing that in lethal combat, right? Like sure, you can do like some training and stuff, and maybe the GM can let you do that. It's like, okay, you're gonna do several training sessions where you're gonna trip people a bunch.
Yeah.
And like maybe you can set like some kind of like progress tracker or something like that to accomplish that. Or, you know, you're doing it enough times in lethal combat where you don't have to make the check anymore. Something like that.
I kind of like the idea that like, hey, I'm going to roll on this D6 and then whatever numbers, like you have to make that many checks before you can do this. As
Something like that.
I think that's really cool. I also just feel
the way that's different, right, is because it's tied to the fiction of the story. Because you're like, I want to be better at fighting. Like, what does that mean? Like, I want to be able to cast more spells or something like that. How does that look? Versus just being like, I'm going to kill enough orcs that I learn Fireball next level.
Right. Well, I think for me, from the game design point of view on this is like, I agree with you. Like, obviously, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, the logic is flawed. And one thing I've always hated is, okay, I hit level 5, I learned Fireball. From where?
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say that it is, from a game design point of view, you're trying to incentivize the players to use the mechanics that you want them to use. In TTRPGs that come from war games, they want you to use the combat features. So the amount of goblins that you kill or whatever, they have turned into a mechanic where then it unlocks things as you go up. So it's like, you know, we've talked about this before where even role-playing parts, like the fiction of D&D, is not mechanicalized really anywhere in it, except for, you know, a couple of skill checks, but even then it's kind of iffy. So I feel like they value the combat mechanics, and they have those mechanics so settled that they're like, let's attach the progression, which you said like should come from the fiction, and I agree with that. They have attached it to the mechanic that they know is going to be used most often, which is combat.
So like, because you get XP from fighting, you will. Well, in original D&D, you got XP from gold,
right? Which is the mechanic of like you want to accumulate this stuff, which requires you to go into the dungeon, right?
And fight. And so like in a roundabout way, you are getting XP. This thing that I'm describing. It's not a D&D thing, right? Because it's like the D&D is what it's always been. It's always been about classes. It's always been about advancement. At this level, you get this. At that level, you get this.
It's even in like Powered by the Apocalypse, though, with the playbooks and everything. I think I like how they do it a little bit better because they give you quite a lot of options.
Yeah.
And in those options, it's sort of like, why don't you take something that makes sense from another class or whatever? Yeah. And you can say like, hey, my guy's been, you know, really focused on learning, you know, arcane tomes lately because of this vampire we've been hunting. I've stumbled across this fireball spell, you know what I mean? And like I've learned this. Like
I think picking up abilities is fun. It's like you pick up instead of leveling and like a level means something, it means like my HP goes up this much, my whatever goes up this much, and then I get this.
I also really like in certain systems like Powered by the Apocalypse and others that you can be disincentivized from using it too. Like there are, once you do a certain amount of things, it's like, you should retire this character. Yeah. Like this character is done. Or you can, like one of the level ups is you get another character and now you're piloting both of them. And so I think that like it kind of incentivizes you to be like, hey man, your guy's a god now, let it go. You know what I mean? It's not what this game's about.
But you don't even really get that powerful and powered by the apocalypse either.
Because you're always 5 hits away from being
from bleeding out.
Dead.
Yeah, and the healing isn't really
Which is the human condition. You can train your whole life to be an MMA fighter, and you're still 1 gunshot away from...
What is HP? We've asked that before.
Yeah. But, like, I don't know. I think that this question is interesting because, like, the fundamental part of it is how should advancement be reflected in mechanics? Yeah. Like that's a better way to put it. How does your character's merit get reflected in mechanics? And the way that a lot of games do it is like level up so you unlock more abilities, your guy gets more powerful, like your druid is able to, like, she's able to, like, reach up into the sky and pull down a water elemental and throw it at someone, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like,
you get so much HP that fights will take 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like that? But the thing there is, like, they want you to feel like the parts that you're spending the most time in the game doing, which are the fights, feel more exciting and new each time.
Well, the reason you're spending the most time in the game doing them is because
the levels
are making
it. You're fully incentivized to fight because that's the main chunk of the game.
It would actually be really terrifying if your HP didn't go up from your original level.
That would be really good, actually.
But, like,
that's what they should do instead.
Just think about hitting level 5 and getting a fireball, but thinking, like, if any of my friends are even close to the radius of this, like,
they're fucking toast. We all have 6 hit points.
Yeah, they're not even just like, oh, they're going to get hurt. They are going to be vaporized.
Yeah,
like,
welcome to my open table.
That's why you don't fire a rocket launcher when there's infantry around, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for this call-in episode of Tabletopped. We will be back next week. Live from Vegas. If you want to contact us, head to our website, tabletopppod.com, and hit that contact form. We'd love to hear from you. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and we will see you next Monday. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.